Hello, this is Akshan, and you are listening to Coaster Radio 2. Oh, oopsie, sorry. One more time. This is Akshan, and you're listening to Coaster-852.
A Hong Kong podcast about all things coasters and theme parks. Welcome to the first episode of Coaster-852. I would just start by introduce myself, HC. So you might be interested to know why we started this podcast is basically we find that there really isn't much of a podcast appealing to theme park fans and coaster fans in the Asia area. So I thought we would just share our love for this. And when I first started out as a coaster enthusiast, I found it really hard to actually start. So I thought let's talk to somebody that isn't necessarily too obsessed with theme parks. Many of you might know that as some GP, general public. So let me introduce my GP friend to you. How are you doing, Ishem?
Hi there, I'm very good. Thanks, Akshi. Okay, let me introduce myself to you all. I'm Akshan, well, abbreviation, but my page is called Hoshi Makoto HK UK. I'm mainly a live blogger on Instagram, posting my life and sharings around mostly in Britain and Hong Kong. Well, currently I'm based in UK in my university, and I'm very glad to join HC here.
Oh yeah, that's very interesting. I didn't know that you started that page, but it just sounds like really interesting because we actually got to knew each other from studying at college. So if you guys want to check it out, just pop over there. I thought I would start a bit about introducing myself. So as I just said, I'm HC and I run an I run an Instagram page called HK_RC Thrills, which you will be able to find under the link description below. Basically, I do all things roller coaster nerdy memes and reviews and also off-ride shots. But I have primarily focused on Asian theme parks and things like that. That's because it's kind of convenient for me to get to there. But yeah, it's a really long story that I probably would leave it for next time to talk about how I actually got into coasters and what I enjoy most about theme parks and stuff. So yeah, HM, do you have any experience you want to share that is very memorable about visiting a theme park?
Well, yes, definitely. For me, I remember back in the time when I was around 10 years old, that was my first attempt on a roller coaster. Well, not a very intensive one, but maybe more of a gentle, mild one. Back in Melbourne, Australia.
Australia has always been on my bucket list because there's so much to see and culture-wise, it's such an interesting place to visit. But I've actually visited Australia before, but it was long time ago, so I barely remember anything from my visit to Australia. But I knew I went to some theme parks there. Not many remain in my memory, unfortunately.
All right, that's cool. Well, other than Australia, I've been to many other countries such as South Korea, Japan, Taiwan, Singapore, and stuff. Well, I'm not really enthusiast in terms of roller coaster. I'm a GP here, but I would also like to share a bit more to you guys. So I remember back in the time when I was in South Korea, there was the famous Lotte Road, which you might fancy, or some other, not really a theme park, but more like a general park with attractions in Tokyo, Japan. Or I have some of the friends in the UK which they love going to Alton Towers.
Oh, yeah, I actually went to Austin Towers and Lottie World as well. But when I went to Lottie World, I was just quite a scary cat. I was a GP back then, so I just pretty much didn't really enjoy the park in general. Even though I'm quite regretful about missing out creds, so-called creds. Many of you coaster nerds would know that creds are probably one of the most important things in life for theme park or coaster enthusiasts. But anyways, let's move on to our next part of the format of our show. Yeah, so basically the format of our show is gonna be very relaxed, and it will be quite a relaxing conversation about theme parks and coaster topics that are not really too specific, because we want to introduce people into the theme park community in general. So we will keep it quite general and sort of not too difficult. Like, we would include some of the jargons of theme parks and stuff like that, but at the same time we want to appeal to a wider audience. So if you want to learn more about like theme parks and coasters, this is definitely the podcast for you, especially when we have a lovely co-host HM with me. He could really learn alongside with the recording as well. Yeah, and also, other than discussing like theme park or coaster topics in our main section of the show, we are going to dedicate each week weekly segments called Park Spotlight, where we would discuss parks that we have not really been to, but we probably just gonna speculate about rides that we really want to get on, and how can we get to the parks and things like that. So I think people would be really interested about things like that, because not many people know about our Asian parks. Yeah, but most importantly, we want out your input as well. Before each episode of the show goes on air, we will be asking you guys questions on our Instagram page. So be sure to check that out. You can ask any questions. Doesn't need to be about the topic that we are going to talk about, but yeah, that's pretty much it. HM, do you have anything to add?
Well, there'll be more about transport later on.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like, transport about the park is definitely an interesting aspect of it. All right then, let's not waste any further time and get into the climax of our show this week. Park spotlights. This week we are talking about Ocean Park in Hong Kong. Okay, let's start by talking about like how could you get to the park. In terms of transport, there are quite a few ways that you could think about planning your trip to Ocean Park in general. I know there's few public transport routes to Ocean Park. HM, do you want to introduce more? Because I know you know quite a lot of about bus routes in Hong Kong and things like that.
Yeah. So, although I'm mainly recording myself in the UK in my university life, but actually I'm a transport or car enthusiast. So I know car models, well, Lambo Ferraris, yep, those things, JDMs, Honda Civics, those kind of stuff, and buses. Because Hong Kong was a former British colony, which in both places, Hong Kong and anywhere in the UK, we've got these double-decker buses, which we really have the close sensation of. So even when I had left Hong Kong and studied in the UK, I can see familiar faces of the double-decker buses, which that is one of the reasons that I chose the UK, and certainly that's an interesting thing to talk about.
Yeah. I actually find like bus routes quite interesting. Like, double decker bus are actually used in Hong Kong to actually accommodate more people visiting different parts of Hong Kong and commuting to different regions of Hong Kong. I just find that very interesting. But do you know what sort of bus routes would be the best to get to the park?
Well, talking about bus routes getting to Ocean Park, it's kind of a sad news. It is still in operation. It is the Route 629, operated by Citybus, which will bring you from Star Ferry in Central directly to Ocean Park. Well, why did I say it's a sad story? It was the fact that MTR, our metro system in Hong Kong, is now expanding their network into Ocean Park, which this will benefit the passengers traveling from Admiralty or Central, the central business district of Hong Kong. And this metro system can bring passengers from the city center to Ocean Park under 6 minutes. So it means the buses will be much slower than that. And that kind of kills the bus service 629. However, it's still in operation. The bus terminus on the city center side was moved from Admiralty to Star Ferry, and they only operate in the morning one way from 9:30 to 11:30, one service per half hour, and it's not providing any return services, which there will be other bus service to bring you back to the city center or your hotel. It's quite a sad story, though.
Oh, sorry, I'm just gonna interrupt there. But do you mean that actually there isn't? So when you're leaving the park, you can get back on 629. Is that the case?
Yeah, that is the case. 629 is not a two-way service. Hence, there will be other buses which will bring you to the nearest region, Aberdeen, to change to other services which will bring you to any part around Hong Kong, including another central district, Causeway Bay, or Mong Kok in the Kowloon side.
That's quite convenient because when we think about park transport, usually, if we're comparing to other countries like Alton Towers, for example, correct me if I'm wrong. Like for you guys like listening from the UK, but according to my understanding, there is only like one bus route from nearby station to the park itself. So, but I'm sure like if you think about Hong Kong, the good thing is that you pop onto the train, you pop onto the bus, and you're there. You boom, you're just there at the theme park, and I just find that quite convenient, isn't it?
Yeah, that is true. But the main reason for 629 to be a sad story is that the metro system is taking 80% of the original 629 passengers away. Hence, seemingly, there is not really a need for the existence of Route 629, and Citybus is only keeping it as a backup service in case of any failure to the metro service. But it is also a golden iconic route, hence they are not disposing this service yet at the moment. But there's no use talking about this as Ocean Park is closed under this pandemic.
Yeah, true. But I honestly can't wait until the park reopens after the pandemic. But talking about another route to the park, you could also get on the MTR, which is the Hong Kong's railway kind of underground system, if you like. But as HM just said, it kind of replaces the route to the park, like the original route of going to the park through number 629. But you could get onto the MTR South Island line from Admiralty, and you could get off in Ocean Park Station, and that's really convenient if for any tourist that is visiting that area. And you could just exit by exit B, pass the footbridge, and boom, you're in the park. Yeah, so very convenient. But do you know any other options?
Yes, there is only one green minibus service. This is kind of the same concept as the normal bus, except when it's smaller but slightly faster and more direct. It is the number 40 route from Ocean Park, bringing you to Causeway Bay. Also, there's another red minibus service, Ocean Park to Mong Kok. However, this is more expensive. It's costing you 24 Hong Kong dollars. So that is roughly 3 US dollars or £2.50 in British pounds. There's a more expensive but rapid option.
Oh yeah, definitely. I don't think in Hong Kong generally, like such a convenient city to get around. Like not many people would just visit the park by actually going on their own transport, like driving their car to the park. Plus, there's a parking fee if you're actually entering the park with like parking lots, and it's quite pricey for what it is. I can't remember how much it is, but I'm sure you could check that out on the Ocean Park website itself. So yeah, without further ado, let's move on to our next section of the show, talking about what might be best sort of attractions.
For me, I would say one of the most interesting feature will be the panda section, which you actually see the panda sent from Sichuan, China. It is a very symbolic animal representing the Chinese culture. They are obviously cute, so many people go there because of pandas. Also, there will be aquarium in the park, so as many other attractions for you to visit. Another main theme for Ocean Park has to be the dolphins. So you must go and watch that show. It's awesome. I've been there, well, so many years ago, but I could still remember that.
It's such a rare thing with sea life shows now, especially with many people concerned about the conservative aspects and do they actually deserve to be put in enclosures and things like that. But anyways, we're getting a bit too far away from the topic itself. But yeah, in general, I really recommend the animal enclosures in this park if you're into that. It almost feels like a zoo plus a theme park. And in the future, also in this coming summer, Ocean Park is opening obviously the new water park as well. But there's quite a lot for everyone to do. For kids, they could be looking at different animal exhibits, and especially with the Meerkat Adventures enclosure, where you could see giant turtles and also meerkats. However, most of the enthusiasts would probably be more excited about their Starline attraction, Hair Raiser, which is located in Thrill Mountain, a B&M Florist, which has exceptional view. But that definitely for me is Starlight attraction by far. And obviously the cable car that provides spectacular view over the South China Sea. But alternatively, if you are scared of height, there is another route to transport you from the waterfront area to the summit area, and that's the Ocean Express train. It's actually really well themed, and the station is you kind of themed to a submarine moving on to the rainforest section of the park, and it's fantastic. It's such a good alternative replacement for the lack of dark rides in this park. But also I would really recommend some of the old classics that are probably soon gone, like Mine Train and Abyssus. Those rides are one of the best rides in the park, but I'm sad to see them go in the near future. In terms of thrill attractions, do you have any that you're really interested in, HM?
For me, I definitely remember getting into an old facility called Space Wheel in the Adventureland area. However, XC told me earlier that it is now shut and disassembled, sadly. It was an old ride. It was the fact that I visited Ocean Park maybe more than 10 years ago. So it should look very different and very unfamiliar to me. So when XC told me about some of the more modern rides, I have no idea what he's talking about.
Oh wow, you haven't actually visited the park in 10 years? It's very surprising. But this 10 years, the park has gone up and down a lot, and without the changes, we wouldn't have the park now we see today. But although park is in a financial crisis in current situation, suffering with like the current management is really bad, by the way. They brought down everything, and I don't want to be too negative on this show, but they kind of ruined the park for me, in terms of the management aspects. But that's talking about too far away from the park itself. But also, for any of you guys that aren't convinced enough about visiting this park, there's a section called Old Hong Kong, which is really interesting. It displays the different cultures of Hong Kong in the old days, and it really has that colonial era Hong Kong feel to it. Because of the posters and the ambience and the songs they are playing, it's really old school. So if you're interested in that sort of stuff, definitely check that area out. That area is like beside the cable car station on the waterfront area. I know HM must be quite interested about of the aspects of old Hong Kong. Would you talk a bit more about like what you're interested the most in old Hong Kong area?
I would say in that area, I really want foreign tourists to check that area out because it may be a stereotype, but I feel like for most of my British friends here, in terms of Chinese culture, they are not quite sure about what's the difference between Hong Kong culture and the general Chinese culture. And certainly, in terms of food, for example, they will know something like sweet and sour pork, dim sum, special fried rice, chow mein, these kind of stuff. But in Hong Kong, we have our own food culture, which is called Ta Tan Tang. It is a type of family operated restaurants in Hong Kong, which they are generally like chippies in the UK. They offer food at a relatively affordable price, while you can feel how nice these people actually are in these kinds of restaurants. The boss will actually be very friendly. They talk to you just like old friends. And I really want to introduce this kind of culture to foreign tourists to know a bit more about Hong Kong in general and the old street views. Maybe some elder audience may have heard of Kai Tak Airport back in the last century, in the 1998, when it was closed at that time.
Oh yeah, definitely. Personally, I'm big nostalgia fan, so that part of the park is probably one of my favorite areas in the park. But also, don't forget that you could get some of Hong Kong's famous street food there, such as like the bubble waffles. Many people laugh about in the UK and everywhere else in the world, but I honestly don't know why it's such a thing. We call that gai dan zai in Hong Kong, but you could try that out. Definitely, it might be a bit pricey, but you're in a theme park after all, so they're gonna rip you off. But in terms of food, there was really isn't much to worry about because there's plenty for everyone else. Like there's vegetarian options in there's halal options in the restaurant in Marine World, I believe. Um, that's called Cafe Ocean. It's called. So if you any of you need like special food requirement at vegetarian restaurants, you could find it in like Cafe Ocean. But yeah, it's pretty accommodating to everyone, and that's one of the advantages in the of the park, in my opinion. But yeah, there's a surprise at the entrance of Old Hong Kong. Will you talk about that surprise?
Yeah, sure. To be exact, that is a AEC Region 5, a British product purchased by our local bus company, Kowloon Motor Bus, at that time. Because of the British influence in Hong Kong, even back at the time, bus companies would buy buses, that double-decker buses from Britain, and accept the color scheme. Basically, they look just like the traditional London buses, or what we call the route masters, London. And even up to date, Kowloon Motor Bus, they've introduced a brand new red livery, which is very similar to the current London red livery. And this surely brings back memories for any British residents currently living in Hong Kong, which I'm sure they will love it. Although it's kind of out of the topic.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like I'm a big nostalgia fan. I'm sure many of you could relate, especially in the UK where some of the older bus models are no longer there. Yeah, that's how it is. A lot of things that we don't really treasure until that thing is gone. So like the space wheel HM just mentioned about. That's a Huss Enterprise ride that used to be operating in the park, but it's sad to see many of them go, and because of high maintenance costs and the complexity of actually getting it fixed and things like that. But ultimately, it was such a fun ride. The feeling of going upside down on that was one of my first rides to actually go upside down. So definitely good memories there. But let's move on to the next segment, shall we? What would your plan be if you are visiting the park with family?
For me, I do not like jumping around in a park, but especially with Ocean Park, I will just visit most of the facilities and it is placed on the map. So after the entrance, we've got the Aqua City, and moving north, we've got amazing Asian animals and Whiskers Harbor. That is the west territory of the park. And after visiting these areas, I would then move to the eastern area, either by the cable car or the Ocean Express. Well, Ocean Express wasn't really an option back in the time. So we've got Thrill Mountain, Polar Adventure, and Rainforest as the newer area. And surely for me, I will know Marine World and Adventureland, which they were the older regions. And surely a lot of the facilities will be replaced, such as the Space Wheel, which I had mentioned. I remember that ride being very exciting and a bit overwhelming to me at that time when I was only around 9, 10 years old on such rides. And yeah, so except visiting the actual facilities and enjoying the rides, you actually get a very good harbor view on some roller coasters situated right at the edge of the coastline, which I'm pretty sure many people will like. Or even for any British audiences here, you may relate to any of the Ferris wheel or any other rides in the coastal area in England, such as Brighton, perhaps.
Yeah, definitely. Like, it's got that seaside vibe, doesn't it? Doesn't it feel kind of like a seaside classic amusement park, which like Brighton piers and things like that? Doesn't it give that sort of boardwalk vibe? I know it's quite different with the hilly terrain and stuff, but the feels you get is similar to a boardwalk, but the cable car is definitely the highlight for me when it comes to just visiting the park in general. But for families, personally, I think this park really isn't too much of a whole day park. Like it probably is a whole day park if you do the family rides and show and also get around the animal exclosures. But we're gonna exclude about the water park there when we're talking about our plan to visit park. But personally, if it isn't a busy day in Ocean Park, you can pretty much get on every single ride in quite a short time. So it could easily be a half day park if you really wanted to rush through. But for me personally, I usually just take a day there. But if you want to do everything, I think, and walk around and enjoy the atmosphere and take a lot of photos and be such a coaster nerd like me, then you probably want to take two days. Actually, it's definitely a 2 day park for me. Yeah. So let's see. What do you think about staying on the on-site hotel, the Ocean Park Marriott?
I guess for any tourists there, or especially roller coaster theme park fans, if you choose to live in this hotel, surely you get some of the special edition amenities or accessories or gifts which you may get. For example, I'm not sure about this, but you might be surprised to get a Doven engraved soap in the Ocean Park Marriott. Well, it's obviously a bit more expensive, but I'm sure some of you will enjoy the stay with the Ocean Park theme, and you can spend a good 2 3 days around the area to enjoy all the rides, even repeat some rides. However, if you do not really fancy this hotel, you can also choose to stay on the northern side of the Hong Kong Island area, such as Central and Admiralty. where we start off with the transportation and stuff. Very convenient. It may be only slightly cheaper, but you may be able to get a very nice view of the Victoria Harbour there. But you don't really get the ocean engraving soap bar, to be honest, if you prefer that.
Just to add to like what you said earlier, I think it's just really nice for tourists to actually not live at the park itself because frankly there really isn't much benefit for living in Ocean Park Marriott Hotel, unlike some parks in Europe. For example, in Phantasialand in Germany, I know they do exclusive ride times, ERTs, but there isn't such a benefit for like you coaster nerds. So probably living offsite and enjoying living in place like Central or Admiralty gives you quite a good access to other tourist attractions as well. So personally, I definitely agree with HM there.
Yeah, that's very true. What I think is for the Ocean Park Marriott, surely that would be perfect for roller coaster or theme park enthusiasts, as they can just live on site and get most of the time to spend in Ocean Park and enjoy all the rides. However, other than Ocean Park, there is really nothing around Ocean Park within walking distance. Well, except of the boring bus depot nearby. I'm not sure any of you would like to go there. Nothing interesting. And in the nearest major region, Aberdeen, on the southern side of Hong Kong Island. Well, there's not really much about this area. It's just a very local Hong Kong community, which there are no tourist attractions nearby and nothing too exciting, except you may like to go around and explore a bit of the more of the local Hong Kong rather than the more international side in Central District.
Yeah, definitely. When it comes to that southern district area, sort of Aberdeen area, you could actually tie it up with things to do around the Typhoon Shelter Harbor. It's a really interesting aspect part of Hong Kong, and you could just get one of those shanty ferries around. It's quite cheap and quite affordable for them. It's not quite a tourist transport, but it's quite interesting. The dynamics that not many places in Europe or in the UK or in Canada or anywhere else that you could actually just get on a shanty boat and just wander around and see the different yachts just parking there and most obviously witness part of the history that is. There's a floating seafood restaurant. It's called Jumbo Seafood Restaurant, which unfortunately closed down recently. But you could really get a good view there. That's if you guys are interested in Hong Kong history in part of the visit, definitely consider visiting there.
Yeah, so I personally would quite like international tourists coming to Hong Kong to really explore a bit more about local history rather than staying around in the more international district, as these areas are not exotic or local enough to explore Hong Kong culture. You might encounter many of the global brands and shops there, which does not really represent Hong Kong. Perhaps you should really try to go to the other areas. Well, the best way to explore will be the tram. It might be quite hot in summertime, but surely there'll be a great ride as we really have the unique double decker trams around the world. You don't get double decker trams anywhere else. And there is currently one model of the Hong Kong double-decker tram static display in Liverpool, I believe. But I guess it may be used occasionally for open days, so it'll be operated in Liverpool.
Oh wow, is it the Albert Docks area in Liverpool? I think that might be quite interesting for UK transport nerds there. But yeah, I think it's about time for us to wrap up this episode now. But before we end our episode here, next week we are gonna talk about something completely different. Talking about what makes a theme park experience in general. But it would be quite interesting talk to somebody that hasn't necessarily to be loads of theme parks. But yeah, that's what we will be talking about. So before we wrap up, I would like to give some shout outs to Leo.the on Instagram and also Logan and Mitch from Perry Coasting for suggestions about parts of the show and how we might run the show. And yeah, just really appreciate you guys like putting in the effort to give us feedback even before the show actually started. But for any listeners listening, feel free to send in any questions that you have in mind before each week's episode, where I would post a sticker to my Instagram page, which is at HK underscore Aussie Frills or at HK underscore Aussie Frills 2. Actually, the number 2 on Instagram, which the second account is about my personal life updates and things like that. So if you're interested in that sort of stuff, feel free to check that out. HM, do you want to plug in your socials with the listeners just here?
Yeah, sure. So for me, my Instagram account is Hoshi, HOSHI underscore Makoto, MAKOTO underscore HKUK. My page is mostly in Chinese, but whenever there are topics I think international viewers may be interested, I will include English and very limited Nihongo, Japanese, or Français, French. And really, merci beaucoup, XC.
I love it, love it. That's brilliant. All right, you guys. I know you guys probably like find this episode a bit weird, but I hope you enjoyed this episode so far. And any feedback would be appreciated. We are always there for you on Instagram, and feel free to pop in and leave us a DM if you have any sort of concerns or any sort of suggestions for improvement. We are always there for you.
All right, last but not least, remember to check out my Instagram page, give it a follow, thumbs up, like, leave me a DM, share to your friends, and welcome to ask me anything about transportations, buses, trams, minibuses, and everything. All right, so this is the end of this show in Coaster Radio 2.
Oh my god! What is going on?
Oh, I'm very sorry. I'm too used to the Hong Kong RTHK Radio 2. I love this too. I'm too into it. Well, sorry about that.
All right, guys, I'm gonna wrap up the show here, and make sure you check out our socials on the bottom. And yeah, take care, everyone.
Finally, thank you and see you next time. Bye bye.